All right, we are back from our trip, and I've had time to reflect and kind of sit with um, all the things that went along on in my head as I was just thinking over what were the highlights, what were the lowlights, what were the things that I learned along the way so that I could pass my tips and tricks and insights along to you if you're planning on having a longer, more extended camping or road trip with your kids. Some of these reflections I think are great not just for extended trips, but a majority of the tips that I'm going to share with you do apply to longer car rides because that's what we did. And I want parents to have the most success possible when taking their kiddos on longer road trips, longer camping trips, because it really was a blast. So I'm going to look over at my notes and I'm going to tell you what I wrote down as I was sitting and reflecting on this trip. So the first thing, plan ahead. So people tell you this when camping to plan ahead because often campsites get booked up really quick, especially in the summertime, and also certain states and areas get booked up really, really quick as well. So what I did is beforehand, it was about 2 months prior to us leaving. If I could have done it before that, I would have, but I didn't come up with the idea until about 2 months prior to us leaving. So I was lucky that it did work out. However, I had intended to start the trip on July 1st, and I had booked the 1st and the 2nd, and then came around 4th of July weekend, and trying to find camping anywhere was a disaster, basically impossible all throughout California. So I had to push our trip and leave on the 5th of July. So instead of leaving on the 1st, because there were no campsites, I left on the 5th instead, and I had booked campsites. I had planned my whole trek all the way from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona, back up through California. I had that all planned out so that I wasn't stressed out about, oh, where are we going to stay tonight? What are we going to do tonight? And there were still a couple instances where I did have to kind of change up the plans because things didn't really pan out how I had imagined or hoped. But having those planned out beforehand was so helpful. I was able to just focus on the drive, focus on spending time with the kids, and it wasn't, oh, this campsite's booked, we got to go find another campsite, or oh, what are we going to do for tonight? That was not on my bingo card for this trip at all. I said, no way, Jose, that is not happening. I booked them all, and I made sure that I had it all mapped out. I did like an Excel spreadsheet. I had like the dates I was going to be in certain places, how long it took to drive to the next spot, the place that I was staying, the campsite number, and like any other information that I might want to have. So I wanted to make sure that I could pull that sheet up and I could just follow it along and not have to worry about like, what's the address for this spot? I had a map, like a paper map. So if that we had no reception somewhere, I was able to look at that and find my way. I never needed to use it, but I'm glad that I had it anyway. Plan for plans to change. So like I said just now, there were a couple instances where a plan was to stay at a certain campground, and then I got to that campground and that plan changed. This happened twice, I want to say. The first one was a pack-in site that I had planned, and I was looking at the site map and I thought, oh, the distance from like the parking area to our campsite doesn't look terribly far. But when I got there and all was said and done, I started unpacking. I got maybe like the first load of things there, and I was just thinking to myself, this is not going to be fun. The kids might have fun, but I will not have fun. I will be stressed. And when I'm stressed, I know that my stress kind of just like exudes out of my body, and then everyone else can feel the stress. And then my kids get all grumpy and irritated, and that's just no thank you. So after beginning to unpack, I just packed everything back up. I found the nearest hotel, and it was like 50-60 bucks a night, which was great. I just booked it, and I said, you know what, sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet and plans change, because I couldn't find any other campsite in the area. Nowhere was letting me book the day of online. It was just like that was kind of a nightmare. I had booked, so I canceled this. Well, I still had this spot, but I didn't want to stay at it. And then I called up another campground, which was about an hour away, and they were like, yeah, no problem, come on by. I was like, do I need to pay online or do I need to pay over the phone right now? No, just come to the front office and we'll take care of it. I get there, and then the person at the front office is like, no, we don't book same day. Like, if you need to book online. And I was like, well, the reason I called was because they wouldn't let me book it online because it was same day. And that was just, my kids were such troopers, because they were like just rolling with the punches, and I was stressed out, but they were doing so great. I mean, of course we're complaining a little bit, but I think they could tell that, I was feeling stressed, so they kind of dialed it down a little bit for me. But after going to that second campsite and it not working out, I said, no, I'm not going to deal with this. We're just going to go to a hotel, take a nice shower, sleep in a nice bed, and call it quits. So just plan for plans to change and be willing to be flexible. Another situation where I changed plans was actually right outside of Yellowstone. We got to our campsite, and it was like a 30-minute drive without reception to our campsite. And once we got there, I just didn't feel supported by like the camp host. So we got there, I mean, so many bear signs. I knew we were going to be in bear country. We had camped at many other campsites within bear country, and I felt fine because I felt supported. Like, oh, there's a camp host around. I know where the bathroom is. I know where to do the dishes. I know where I can get water. And I got there, and like none of that stuff was around, or there were no signs. And this spot does have those amenities. Like when I booked it, it was obvious that they were there. And the camp host never really came to like check in and make sure that was like my site. And I just had so many questions of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And without reception, deep in bear country, and not just bear country, but grizzly bear country, I was like, nah, I don't feel safe. I don't feel supported. I've had so many other experiences with amazing camp hosts that made me feel supported when I had questions, or if I, needed some information, and they were more than happy to go above and beyond. Not that that's always has to be the case, but honestly, like when you're camping by yourself with your kids, that's really nice to have. Baker's Bay Campground was amazing. They gave the kids Otter Pops. I ran out of ice for our ice chest, and they pointed me in the direction that I needed to go. They brought us firewood, and they were just super kind and helpful. Miller, Slovenia, which is in Washington near Hoh National Forest. Also really awesome. The camp host was super kind. They offered to just like walk us around and show us all the edible berries in the area. So we were just like picking berries, and he was telling us all about them. The kids were having a blast. So that was really, really great. And then the Grand Teton campground, it was Gros Ventre, I want to say is how it said. And that one, I mean, we pulled up, the person came out and, checked us off the list, but gave us like a full rundown. Like they had seen a bear that day, and, other campgrounds had talked about it. So they were very forward with that. And even though that could have been terrifying and intimidating, which it a little bit was, I felt supported because they gave me all the information that I needed, told us where the river was, showed us where all the bathrooms were, where the water, where the trash, all of that goes. And I was like, okay, there was like, the campground was filled. There were so many people there. So all of that to say is, when you're camping, and if it's just you and your kids, even if you've got like a partner with you and you've got your kids, just listen to your gut. I told Lucas before leaving on this trip, if I ever felt like, first, I needed to turn around and just come back home because things were not working out, I could do that. And second, if I didn't feel safe or I didn't feel supported, that I was going to listen to my gut and I was going to find an alternative. So that's what I did. A big one, number 3, is don't drive 10 hours in one day. Just don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to your kids. On average, I drove around like 3.5 hours basically per day. There were a couple sites that we stayed 2 days, and if I could do that more, I would have. But with how much we wanted to travel within a month time span, and going only like 3.5 hours, 4 or 5 hours per day, it wasn't going to be possible to make that distance in that amount of time. So I had to, kind of speed up the timetable. When you're driving just like 3 hours, it gives you enough time to have breakfast at your campsite, pack up without being stressed, get in the car, and then we would usually eat lunch on the road. Once we would get to the next campsite, we would unpack and go kind of explore, usually play at a creek for a good long time, and then get ready for dinner, bedtime, and kind of basically start it all over. But it gave us enough time to not feel like we were only on the road. We were driving a good chunk of time, but it gave the kids lots of time to play at the new location, get a feel for it, have a lot of fun, tire themselves out to get ready for bed. And that brings us to number 4, which is bedtime. In the summer, the sun is taking way longer to set, and for my kids, like, they had, I don't know if it was FOMO or what, but they did not want to go to sleep before the sun had set. So in the beginning, I was like, okay, kids usually go to bed around 7 o'clock, and I would try to get them in bed. It was a little bit of a battle, and I just got to a point, I think it was like 2-3 days in, where I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, we're just going to play, and then they're going to get to the point where they're exhausted, and once they're exhausted, we're going to go to bed, and I'm just going to go to bed when they go to bed. And so I had to kind of relinquish that desire to keep control over that aspect of the trip and just have fun with them, instead of trying to force them to go to bed at a certain time, even though I know that they're tired. It had its challenges. Bedtime was definitely like the biggest challenge, because they would get overly tired sometimes, and then some meltdowns would happen. But I would prefer that to just fighting with them to lay down in their sleeping bag, settle down, go to sleep. So overall, I just said, nah, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna play. We typically went into our tent around like 8 or 9, and it started getting, like, the darkness started coming. They were able to calm down a little bit, and my son would just fall asleep in like 2 minutes. He was out. My daughter would take a little bit more time, but we made it work, and it was much easier than forcing bedtime upon them. Snacks are critical. Number 5 is snacks. Bring all the snacks. Just pack the snacks. And don't just pack like only healthy snacks, unless that's what your kids like, but pack things that they enjoy as well. I had like a little middle seat area for them with things for coloring, books for reading, drinks for drinking, snacks for snacking, and that was really helpful because I wasn't having to like try to grab things while driving. I mean, that still did happen, but much less than what would have been if I had to be stressed about grabbing snacks and, getting toys or whatever for them to occupy themselves. So we did a screen-free trip, which no iPads, no movies, no none of that. What we did instead is we brought the Yodo player. I highly recommend the Yodo player. I love it. Kids love it. It's screen-free. It's a way for you to have them listen to stories or listen to songs, and they've got a good selection. There are other options out there, and if you find one that suits you better than the Yodo player, go with that. But I just really liked having, they have a Yodo Mini that's great for travel, and it comes with just little cards, and the cards don't take up a bunch of space, and that was really helpful. They could just slide into that middle compartment area that I had created. They could pick and choose what they wanted to listen to. They had headphones to listen to it on, and that was very utilized by my daughter for a majority of the trip. And it was really beautiful to see. I mean, the first few days was a little bit of a challenge because highly addicted to screens in this family. So part of this trip was to help break that addiction and give us a detox, which it did do, and it's been awesome. And I'm really loving how it's affecting our family overall. That's a whole other topic that I can talk about. But it was awesome to see how they began just we all got in the flow. We figured it out. They were champions in the car. I am so proud of how they showed up in the car. I was really nervous about it. I wasn't sure how it was going to pan out, but it went awesome. Number 8, the most used items aside from my tent. So let me read. Okay, so I've got my stove. We started off with a Ozark stove that was terrible. I, about 3 days in, switched it, got rid of that one, got a Coleman stove, and that was really a game changer for me. It just made cooking way easier all around. Getting food ready so much easier. And it was way, the Ozark stove we had was probably about this tall, which took up a ton of room in our car. The Coleman one was this tall once it was all packed down. Big space saver. I had a little tub basin from IKEA. It was about this deep, that I packed with us, that I used for washing dishes. Use that all the time. Highly recommend that. Super helpful and handy. I had a 5-gallon water jug. Also, I use that every single day, multiple times a day. So helpful because you can just go to the water spigot, fill it up. You're not having to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can use that water for washing dishes. You can use it for drinking. You can use it for putting out the campfire. There were so many uses. And sometimes when we were in the car and we'd run out of water, if we got to a rest stop, I could just use that 5-gallon jug to fill up their water cups and good to go. That was very helpful. I had packed a bunch of jackets. We were going up to Washington, especially Hoh National Forest, which could still get rain even in July. And then there were quite a few storms in Colorado and in the Great Sand Dune National Park, which is a part of Colorado. And they get these summer afternoon storms, and that happened almost every single day that we were there. It just missed us basically every time, but I could see it off in the distance, and I was glad that I had the stuff. In the beginning of the ride, I kind of just popped it in the car, but while packing and unpacking, it was pretty inconvenient. So I got a soft top roof bag, and then I ratcheted it down because we don't have the roof rack. And that worked really well. It helped save space inside of the car and make packing and unpacking much easier, but then I still had the assurance that if I needed those items, I could easily get to them. Nets. Number 9 is nets. Just bring nets. If you've got younger kids, I don't know about older kids, but if you've got younger kids, my daughter is 6, my son is 3, almost 4, and they played with those every single day. When we went to the river, when we went to the creek, when we were on a walk, just anywhere that they could, those nets were in their hands, and they loved them. Similar to the net topic is water. I did my best because it is July, it's summertime, it's hot, and my babies are water babies. I'm a water baby. They love water. I love water. So I tried my best to book sites near a body of water, whether that was a river, a creek, or a lake. And that was probably one of the best decisions because I had so much fun and they had so much fun. Another tip and trick would be to find cool excursions along the way. So when we were in Washington, I stopped by the Pacific Science Center museum, I don't know, but it was basically like a science center for kids and adults, and the kids had a really fun time. We got to go into this cool butterfly exhibit. That was a lot of fun. But you can also do excursions that aren't expensive. You know, there's some free things my dad mentioned to me while I was planning, like visiting Tillamook so you could see how cheese is made, or there's a beach called Agate Beach that you can look for agates at in Oregon. And I mean, there's dinosaur things that you can do in Colorado. In Montana, we went to a cave, the Lewis and Clark Cave. That was super duper fun. The hike to the cave, not so fun with two littles and by myself, but once we got inside, it was really, really cool. And then the final thing that I would suggest is knowing when to call it. So I had gone in with the intentions of making this a 30-day trip. We got to the Grand Canyon and it was very obvious that it was time to go home. And I saw that in my kids' behavior, because they had been amazing the entire time. They were asking about their papai more. They were asking about home more. My son specifically said, I'm ready to go home. And at that point, yeah, I was ready to continue, but I would much rather be able to look back on our trip with really happy and fun memories than force my kids to push through the entire trip, because they had been amazing. So good, so amazing. Of course, there were hard moments and hard times. It was definitely not all amazingness, but I was really proud of, like, they basically did 3 weeks away from home on the road, exploring and camping. And that's a big feat for a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So I'm just going to constantly tell them how awesome that they did, because they really did awesome. And if leaving 5 days early is part of what I need to do, then that's what I'm going to do. So we got in the car and we head home, and it took us, I wanted to drive all night and get home just like the next day, but there was a car accident, and so we got stuck on the road, and we ended up having to book a hotel for that night because we didn't start moving until like 11 o'clock. And then we drove home the next day. But those would be my pieces of advice. If you're going on a longer road trip, be flexible. Flexibility is super important, but find ways to have structure as well. So like booking the campgrounds, finding fun excursions, just so you're not stressed about finding these things the day of. Do your best to kind of plan in advance, plan for things to change, and know that as you go along, you're going to kind of refine your personal process for yourself with your kids, what their likes are, what their dislikes are, what they like to eat, what they don't like to eat. And it will get easier. There'll be hard moments, there'll be great moments, there'll be happy, frustrating, all of the above. And that's just all part of the experience and part of the reason why I wanted to do this. So I hope that helps. Let me know what you think. And if you have any more questions, just shoot them down in the comments below.